The same. Boom. We are live.
There we go. We were live already. We're just recording now.
Yeah, we're just recording now.
So what's our topic today?
Yep. In the beginning, God created
The heavens and the earth?
the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. The Spirit of God hovered on the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light." Today we're going to talk about light in the darkness. And normally we try to, conceal it from each other as far as what we're going to talk about. But with my PowerPoint presentation, I couldn't help but you couldn't help but see what was happening on our, so Chris already knew.
But that was 9 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I got here at 1:21.
Yeah.
So
Unscripted.
I've had 9 minutes to contemplate light.
Yeah. Well, so what's the first things that just hit your mind about it?
Well, you think about no more darkness. Mm-hmm. I think about light, safety. When you're our old house, and this is one of the great things about being a dad, right? Is tormenting your kids. Like our old house.
I would never do that.
No, you're so much better than me. So can you help me with that, Bob? I really struggle with this constantly. My poor boys. But our old house, like we had this bonus room over top of the garage, and it was like 30 foot long and 30 foot wide.
You're so rich. Yeah, go ahead.
But that was the only room that had carpet in it, right? So the boys could go in there and they could beat and bang and tear everything up. But it had one window on the other side. And I put that window in there just if there was ever a fire and they couldn't get out this way, they could crawl out the window, right? Yeah. They could jump 25 foot if they had to. Mm-hmm. And so what I would do is at nighttime, they would have a lamp on, or they would leave the window open or something like that, and it would be dark. And I would say, hey, go over and shut that window on the other side of the room. Well, the light switch is on this wall, right, 30 foot away. So they'd get over there just about to that window. I'd cut the light off and shut the door, right? And you hear, boom, 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 ah! Screaming the whole way. And they're rattling the door, rattle, just trying to get out. And then the first thing they think of is instantly it's dark. So they flip the light on. Well, as soon as they flip the light on, this was when they're like, just a little bit older than Camille, 3, 4, 5 years old, right? Maybe Case's age or something. They flip the light on.
Everything's good.
The doorknob quits rattling because they're safe again, right? So when I think about light, I think about safety.
Yeah, God, He created light. And, you think about it in the beginning of creation that God, he created it, but also he didn't have to continuously create. He didn't say, let there be more darkness.
That's right.
And I think what's neat too is that God created light in the beginning. He created it on day 1, and then on day 4 he created the sun, moon, and stars. And what's neat is that God doesn't have to have the sun to be light. And I think about Revelation 21, the fact that there's no night there in heaven, and God is the light, and it's just His presence is what's going to illuminate heaven. And so you think,
safety.
Yeah, safety. You look at it, you have darkness was on the face of the deep. God spoke, light came into existence. Light is there, and so you have light in the beginning, but man in Genesis 3 begins to turn away from the light and to do his own thing. And so God, all throughout the Bible, is referred to as light. Darkness is sin. Darkness is evil. The absence of light is
Men
bad.
love darkness.
Men love darkness rather than light, yeah. And so you look at, Genesis 3, that man turns away from light. And then everything from Genesis 3 to Revelation 21 is about getting man back to the light. It's about getting man back to being in that relationship with God constantly.
That reminds me of a verse. Let's look at something in Acts 17. I was just thinking about this when you're talking about just getting us back to it. And, Paul he's talking about that in Acts 7. This is the Sermon on Mars Hill, right? Mm-hmm. And in Acts 17, I don't know, is it going to be about verse 22 or something like that? Let me see if I can find it here. I'm sorry, I don't know where every verse in the Bible is, okay? 27. Verse 27. Paul says, so that they should seek the Lord in hope that he might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. It paints this picture that he's always there. You've just got to seek it. You just got to draw yourself to it. That it's this idea that you got to reach out and grab a hold of, that he's trying to draw us back to him, that he's standing right there. And that while we're in darkness, we can reach out through the darkness to the light, and he's standing right there.
Yeah,
absolutely. He's never been far from us. The whole time he was drawing us to the light.
Right. I heard of a story of a tale that and I say it's a tale, that it may be true, I'm not sure, but that Indian warriors, that kind of their rite of passage was that at this certain tribe you talking
about like Native Americans or like
Native Americans. For Native American to become a warrior in his tribe, he would have to go. There was certain things he'd have to do, but one thing was he would have to go and he would have to spend all night by himself out in the woods, without the accompaniment of anybody else. And so he would stand there all night, and they would pick the darkest night for him to stand out there. And so you hear all the sounds in the woods and all these things, but as day would break, as light would break, he could see, and there would be the shadow, and all of a sudden he would understand that his dad was there watching over him all night. But it was it was a test. Now, of course, the dad's going to be out there to protect him, and I don't know how old the boy would be, but you just think about darkness would separate us in our mind. Darkness separated that young boy in his mind from his father. He didn't know his dad was there because darkness was there, and it was hiding. And it's the same way with God, is that men love darkness rather than light. That's what in John 3, John 1, and so that's the problem. That's the condemnation, is that men love darkness rather than light. And so darkness conceals God from us, for us to not be able to see him. But I've heard you say this several times, is that no amount of what? Yeah,
no amount of darkness can steal the light of one flame. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't. You can't measure. We've talked about this. You can't measure darkness. You can only measure the absence of light. So it doesn't matter how much darkness there is. It can never steal the light of a flame. And I love years ago when the KW Church here was sending out their newsletters from the TZ 2000, with Si and Stephanie when they were in Africa, and maybe she can correct me if I'm wrong on this story, but I remember this story that I read in one of those newsletters, and it was just so interesting. It's one of those stories that sears in your mind, and I can't even remember if it was Si telling this story or not. So if Stephanie listens to this, maybe she can correct me on it. But he was telling the story of them going out into the bush, and they were going out at nighttime. And when they were going down one of these little dirt trails, and they were on one of those Land Rovers with, they got the lights all decked out on top of it and everything. Mm-hmm. And so they're going down this path, and they run up on this group of natives. And, before they get there, they can see all these eyes, throughout all these eyes, in the landscape, right? And so when they're seeing all these eyes out there, they realize there's all kinds of stuff in the darkness out there. Well, when they run up on this group of people, they start running. And the driver, he's the American, right? He's the missionary. He's over there, so he's trying to catch up with them. Well, they're running faster, so he's speeding up, and that guy's, he kind of taps him on the hand. He says, "Don't do that." And he said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Well, you're missing what's going on." He said, "You see all those eyes?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "They see them too." And he said, "But now they realize that there's safety in the light." He said, "They're trying to stay in your light." So as long as they know they're in your light, they know that they're safe. And so those people that are running, they're not running away from you. They're running with you. They're trying to stay in your light. And so there's safety there. That's what John 1 First John 1 is about.
Yeah.
That let's look at that.
God is light, and in Him is no darkness at all.
At all.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that we have to realize that's what God calls me to be. Is He calls me to be a direct reflection of what He is, and so He's the light source, but I'm to be the one that reflects that, and so in order for me to reflect Jesus, I have to stay in the light, because that's what a Christian is. Is I don't bear the light on myself. God's the one who created light. He's the one that God is light, in Him is no darkness. And so a Christian is just a direct reflection of God, in that the light shines on me, and then I shine. It's almost like a mirror or a snowflake snowing in a lot of parts of the world,
right?
In parts of the United States right now, and that's what
I saw both of them Monday.
You saw both snowflakes in South Mississippi.
Yeah, I saw both of them.
We even had snow in South Mississippi. It wasn't much, but. So when you think about a snowflake, they're all unique, and the snowflakes they're not white. They're a reflection of light, and so it makes them look white because it's in its purest form.
That's right. And in First John 1, that's the message that he's driving home. This is verse 5, 1 John 1 and verse number 5. This is the message that we have heard from Him, big H, Jesus. Yeah, right. That John is telling. He's like, this isn't. What's kind of a cool thing about this is he's saying that this isn't like an inspired thing. We heard him say this. He that's why he uses this. Verse 1, that which was from the beginning, which we heard, which we seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, which our hands have handled concerning the word of life. He's talking about his experience with Jesus. Right. Paul, a lot of the things he received was from inspiration. Like in 1 Corinthians 11, he talks about how I received from the Lord, and he's talking about the Lord's Supper or something like that. Right. Or he says, we know our Lord Jesus said it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. Right. And those aren't things that he heard Jesus say.
Right. He didn't hear him directly in the flesh.
But John's saying, like, this, we were there.
Yeah, I laid on Jesus.
Exactly right. I was the one that held my head on his chest.
Can you imagine hearing the heartbeat of the Lord just laying there?
Yeah. And so verse 5, he says, this is the message that we heard from Him. You don't know what he heard? No, I was with him, and I want you to understand that I was with him from the beginning, and this is the thing that we heard from him, that God is light. God's light. Out of all the things that John could say right now, all the profound messages that Jesus talked about, that you think that I come to the world to condemn it. No, I didn't come to the world to condemn it. I come to the world to save it. I'm going to come back in condemnation one day, but I came to save it, or I came that I might give my life a ransom for many, or I come to seek and save the lost, or I came to serve and not to be served. But John says this is what he said.
That's right.
He said this right here, that God is light, and in Him is no darkness at all. And if we say that we have fellowship with Him and walk in darkness, you're just fooling yourself. We lie and we don't practice the truth, because what he's reminding them is that you are a light. Your job is still to reflect the light. That's why, that Matthew 5:16, let your what?
The light shine before men, yeah.
Yeah.
That they may see your good works, and glorify your Father. And this is just a direct reflection of that, of saying that God's light, and in Him is no darkness. So if you say that you have fellowship with Him, but yet you walk in darkness, that doesn't say that you there's some people that believe, okay, well you, Chris Donovan, you're the substance, you are God, you are light. Well, no, because that's not it. God is He's the source. I have to remain in that source. And of course, this is a verse. I don't want to get off on this tangent, but some of our friends of faith will say that, once you're saved, you're always saved, and we believe that in the sense that as long as you're walking in the light, yes, you are. You're going to remain saved. But if I turn intentionally and I walk away from the light into darkness, there's no more salvation. That's
because we always inherently understand. That's why John contrasts light and darkness, because the Bible is written in such a way that we can really understand it. There are people that might like the dark, but nobody loves it.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I like it dark when I'm sleeping, don't you?
Absolutely.
You know, like sometimes when it's those full moons and our window is right behind us, for all the years that I worked nights, and I was like, Lord, can you please turn down the moon a little bit tonight?
Yeah.
It's so bright, but
or even a straight light coming through like the little holes on the blinds, and it hits you in the wrong spot. But
yeah,
go ahead.
But that's what God is trying to get us to we understand inherently the blessing of light. We understand inherently the blessing of when light dispels all the things. Now I can be fully aware of my surroundings. Now I can really understand. I'm not scared. I mean, you think that's one of the plagues that he sent on Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ninth plague. You think about that. It was so dark that it was felt.
Yeah, have you ever been there?
Yes, I mean in a dark cave.
Yes, when it's so dark, it just feels like it's squishing you.
Mm-hmm. And it was just
like humidity or something like that. It's just you can just feel it on you. And that's why God sends that on them. He's using. I mean, all the other things were plagues. That's why he calls it a plague.
Right.
The frogs, the lice, the flies, the murrain, all these things that happen. They're all plagues. So darkness is one of the plagues that God sends on them.
And it was darkness. I always love looking at the types and antitypes. The first one. This is, water to blood. All the other things were natural. In the sense that man had seen frogs, he'd seen lice, he'd seen diseased livestock, and lightning come from the sky, and those things. But man had never seen water turn to blood, and so that's a way. He said, "This is how you're going to know that I'm God." Mm-hmm. But also, I like looking at so God chose blood first, but then also I like looking at the fact that God chose darkness to be right before he would lead his people out into light, and through the Lamb, and that's. So you look at the darkness of sin, and then enters the Lamb of God.
Can you quit talking about this so I can preach about it Sunday?
Are you preaching about it?
No.
So darkness is right before deliverance.
That's right.
And so then they need to be delivered, and right before the death of the firstborn, and so it's just interesting things that just looking at the Bible and how he does it, and
you can certainly see the antitype in that.
Yeah.
In that, Romans 5 and verse 6, and while we were yet without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. Galatians 4:4. In the fullness of time, God sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the law. Darkness. That we was at God looked on that point in history and he said, this is the darkest moment. And he did with Egypt. This is the darkest moment for Israel, but it's going to take the firstborn's death to deliver them. And it's going to do the same thing for him. That's why he uses that Adam, as in Adam, we all die, but Jesus, the first fruits, right. Through his resurrection, through his life, we all live again. I mean, what an awesome thing. And so, that rolls you back to that 1 John scenario then, right? So if we walk in the light, if we stay in the light, if we stay in the place of security, we have fellowship one with another. There's this trifold, connection then. Like I'm connected to God through fellowship. I'm connected to Bob through fellowship. Mm-hmm. All these things are this threefold idea that we have fellowship one with another because the blood of Jesus cleanses me then in the light.
Yeah, and so as a Christian, I've got to remain there. And if we have fellowship with, and I think about the continual cleansing of his blood. That there's so many benefits in the light, and it was real hard for me whenever I went from being a night shift police officer to a day shift police officer because the darkness conceals so much, and so there's certainly it can put.
What do you mean? What was hard about it?
Well, so like going up on a traffic stop, you treat every traffic stop as the same. Whether I don't care. If it's a teenager or if it's somebody that you think is going to kill you, because that's just the way that they train you, is the fact that, all right, be ready for anybody and everybody to kill you. So whenever you walk up on a vehicle, certain things that you would do, but at nighttime I could be concealed as I'm walking up to that vehicle because of using light, putting it in mirrors, putting it on certain things. Yeah. But so there's a spotlight on your vehicle, there's takedowns on your light bar.
Is that why they strobe the lights for?
And somewhat, but yeah. So that it's a way to, it's just a way to throw you off in some ways. But also, it catches the eye during the daytime too. But so approaching a vehicle, I could, a lot of people expected somebody to show up on the driver's side. Well, if there were several people in the vehicle, it's going to be hard for me to see. Well, I could back out of my vehicle. I've got the spotlights on it and approach from the passenger side. They're all kind of waiting, looking out on the driver's side, and then I'm kind of seeing if they got something planned. I've even walked up on vehicles on the right side, looked at everybody, make sure they look good, and then walked all the way back around and approached them to talk to them on the driver's side.
And they never knew.
But so you lose some of that tactical advantage and things, and so.
So would you rather do it at night?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather have been a police officer at night. Yeah, as far as the advantage that I could gain from it. But at the same time, it's harder.
So
for
what
you
do
to
you
find
think? How do you think that applies to Satan then?
Well, yeah. Well, so here's the thing too: is during the daytime, criminals nowadays are breaking into more houses during the day than they are at night. They'll walk up to your house, knock on your front door, and if nobody shows up, guess what? I can go kick in the back door. If Krista shows up at the front door, they're like, hey, this old trailer you got down there, you trying to sell that thing? Well, no, it ain't by the road. I ain't trying to sell it. Oh, you wouldn't want to try to get rid of it? Okay, well, I was just trying to figure it out,
I saw one like it.
How long you had that thing? And they'll shoot the breeze with you and gone. Well, so, but at nighttime, if you're knocking on somebody's door in the middle of the night, that's right. You
the chamber 870's coming to the door with them.
Something going on. So you can. So as a police officer, I could decipher if somebody's out at 1 a.m. in the neighborhood, something's probably off with that. Versus 1 p.m. I've got a lot more reasonable suspicion to where I can actually stop it. So it's a lot easier to tell who's good and who's evil when you're policing at night. That's the reason. So if you and that goes.
So if you see a dude walking down the road at 3 o'clock in the morning with 3 weed eaters, it's a pretty good chance that he's
good time. Or if he's walking down the road, he's got 2 GPSs in his pocket,
right, and a cell phone.
What are you doing with 2 GPSs in your pocket? And he's like, yeah.
What if it's snowing? I saw this guy walking down. I always think about this guy. I saw him walking down the road one day. I was going over to Jessica's school, and he had 2 weed eaters and a chainsaw, and it was 18 inches of snow on the ground. And I always wondered if that cat had stolen things because, like you use a weed eater, but you ain't using it in 18 inches of snow.
No. And that's the other thing is, back the very first detective case that I got assigned to, I was actually working with Jerry Crabtree, who was a member of the church as a detective, and Jerry put 56 years of law enforcement in. He was 70-something years old, and he was killed in the line of duty in a car wreck, actually in the snow. But my first case was about 20 cars got hit in a neighborhood in the snow.
Oh, okay.
Broken into, and me and Jerry worked that case together. So, yeah, it was at night in the snow, people breaking in, and you think, man, everybody'd be out playing in the snow. Well, criminals are out working in the snow, because if you see somebody out at 2 a.m. when it's snowing, you might think, they're just playing snow, fighting, whatever. You got a little more excuse versus if you're out in the rain, right. At 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So it's criminals will hit in the snow. So, but in the dark, and you look at how the scripture lines up with that. How that you look at what is it, 1 Thessalonians, it talks about. What they get drunk at night. We're not of the night, and we're the day, we're the light, and that's what we should be reflecting all the time.
Yeah, and so I think about, like you mentioned Revelation 21, and as inspiration would have the scriptures kind of close with the Revelation letter, and as we know it, and God's going to go through this scenario with John, and they're going to explain some things about what's going to happen in the end. Basically, just getting him to hold on. You know what I mean? Just getting him to hold on and just hold tight. It's going to be okay. And I know there's challenges and there's struggles, but I want to tell you about the city Foursquare, and I want to tell you about the walls of jasper and the streets of gold and the pearly gates, and I have flat out never cared about any of those things before.
No. I mean, you think about this, like how many people walk up to the gate of an apartment complex and they're just like rubbing on it. Like, I'm so happy about this. Or how many people you see pick up asphalt? I keep a piece of asphalt on my desk in my office, and people are like, "What's that for?" Well, it's just to remind me that riches aren't important here, because the streets are going to be paved with gold one day, and I think that I think that it's saying, hey, that it's going to be nice, but really you're not going to care about it because you're going to walk on it. I don't know if we'll drive on it, whatever it'll be, but you walk on the streets, and so we're going to walk on things that they're not going to be important to us. Asphalt's not that important to us today as far as monetary value. Now, for some it is, but. But that's the way that I view it. Is I don't go out here and I see a piece of chipped asphalt and I'm like, oh, I got me a nugget. I'm gonna hold on to that thing.
And I've often wondered, and this is just Chris's opinion, but when John's describing these things, these are people that are living in under oppression. They're living under all the worst things that Satan could throw at them. I mean, you think he's trying to stomp out Christianity as if it were a fire, right? And in the first century, and it doesn't work. The harder he stomps it, really what he does, he's just fanning the flame. And so John is writing this, and he's telling him about the streets of gold and the pearly gates and all these things. And I really, people may call me a heretic for this, but I just really don't believe that heaven's going to have golden streets. And I think John is just really trying to get us. I think he just wants us to understand.
I rebuked him, y'all. Go ahead. No, you just think John wants to understand what?
Yeah, he's just, all these things are signs and symbols. Remember, John, Revelation 1.
Yeah.
These things are signs and symbols.
Symbolism,
Yeah, just to get us to hold on because there's something. But what I love about it is God does not spend all this time talking about what's there. He doesn't try to describe how fancy your mansion's going to be, because my mansion is going to be a lot different than anybody else's if I get to build it my own way.
Yep,
I'm going to have the biggest shop in heaven, I promise you.
I just hope I get to live in Section 8 housing.
If we get the hope, I just want to hold the door for people coming in then. Let me sweep off the mat. But
Lord, let me into Section 8.
But, at the end of the day, he doesn't tell us what's there. He just says what's not there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more darkness. There's no more night.
No more tears, no more pain, no more suffering. And that's why I love that passage I referred to in 1 Thessalonians 5. He said, the day of the Lord's going to come as a thief in the night. So you better be ready. When they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes, just as labor pains do. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. And so we've talked about thieves and darkness. But you're sons of the light and sons of the day. We're not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch and be sober. And I think that's the greatest thing that we can do is that we're of the day. So he says, be sober, verse 8, putting on the breastplate of faith and love as a helmet of the hope of salvation. For God did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain salvation through Jesus Christ, who died for us. Therefore, we're to comfort one another with these words. And as a Christian, that because God is light and because light's going to be there in the end, he's telling us, you need to be of the day. You need to be sober. Don't be sleeping. We need to be continuously working and striving for the light of God.
Amen. Hey, another cup of coffee down and another podcast.
This is the Unscripted Podcast.
You gonna stop the video?